Everybody was in shock. How could he was doing so well? How could he die? So they said, okay, we want to do an autopsy. They took special permission from the family and did an autopsy on the patients. And they found that the kidney was absolutely fine. No graft rejection, nothing. Everything was fine. You know why he died? He died of starvation. Because the last paisa he spent on buying immunotherapy or drugs to counter the graft rejection. At that time, the drugs were very expensive. So this was a chilling, I would say, eye-opener that we should not do something which is not practical for our patients in India. And therein a policy was devised that, okay, this is the lifetime cost of immunotherapy or whatever medicines are required, and there should be a mechanism in place. Where will they get the funds for buying those drugs? How will the drugs be there? Whether AIIMS will provide, so that only when the whole ecosystem is there should you go in for a transplant. It's not that if the kidney is available you should go in for a transplant. Not because expertise is there you should go in for a transplant. So the take-home message is it has to be customized to our resources, our paying capacity, our social needs. And as George Santayana said, those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it. So when we talk about our country, I think Nano was an excellent example where it was supposed to bridge the gap for the unsafe two-wheelers into a very safe four-wheeler at a price point which was not very high. However, it somehow missed the bus and people did not accept it for whatever reason, because of so much of political and other things happened at that point. Otherwise, it would have leapfrogged a generation of safety, lack of safety culture. Similarly, when we talk about healthcare setting, in the emergency setting, I have seen people buy expensive beds. Beds are not required in the emergency. Only trolleys are required because it's an emergency environment. Wherever the patient has to lie, it has to be a trolley. It cannot be a bed. Portable devices are required, and that is the theme, that we do not require expensive equipment. We require equipment which is portable, can be easily used, and similar to ventilators. And the next talk we're going to show you something very interesting about ventilators. Ultrasound, again, extremely important, extremely invaluable in the emergency healthcare setting. And the product does not have to be cheap only to qualify to be used in India. No, I'm not saying it has to be cheap. I'm saying it has to be cost effective. If you look at the other image, it's that of a portable CT scan. Now this portable CT scan costs around 2 crores to purchase. But it is extremely useful in the ICU setting, especially for patients with head injuries, with any kind of head pathology. And we purchased the first mobile CT scan around 7 years back in one department, that is my department, neurosurgery. And since then we have purchased 2 more, taking a count of 3 mobile CTs in one department in AIIMS itself. And we have done 15,000 CT scans of the head since then. You can imagine how useful it is. You don't have to shift the patient from the bed. The patient is lying in bed, you get a CT done. Invaluable for patient care. This is the kind of cost-effective technology India needs. And the next step obviously is indigenizing it so that we can get it developed for, let's say, less than 10 lakhs or 20 lakhs. That is what I think would be really a game changer for India. Like an ultrasound machine, again a game changer for everywhere in the world. And what we need is, we have the biggest asset in the world, that is patients. No hospital gets as many patients as we get. 3 million, 30 lakh patients coming to this hospital in OPD every year. We tend to say, oh, so many patients, all the problems are because of patients, but I say the patients are the main thing for us. They can provide us so much statistics, data, information, knowledge, which can be a game changer. We are not using the proper tools to help them and to help ourselves. If we have electronic medical record, data analytics, big data analysis, we can really transform healthcare and be the model for the rest of the world. I just Googled this, what were the 10 top innovations in 2016? And there was a white paper by Deloitte, a very famous consulting firm in the world. And if you look at the top 10, it's nothing very, surprising or something which you've not heard about. Next generation sequencing has been there for a long time for genome sequencing. 3D printed devices we keep talking about, and it's been there and it's being used. Immunotherapy, we all know. Artificial intelligence, point of care diagnostics, like ultrasound machine, like mobile CT machine. These are the innovations we are actually using right now. Virtual reality, we are doing simulations on virtual reality. Leveraging social media to improve patient experience, and we are doing that. We have our app, we released it yesterday. We have an online appointment system which is generating a huge amounts of data. Biosensors and trackers, we are using them. Okay. And convenience of care, that means retail clinics, urgent care, and we have the video consultation and AIIMS video clinics already happening. And finally, telehealth, which I said is already there. So the top 10 innovations in the world are actually happening here. They are there in your face, we don't see them. And I think the future is digital health, or in some way having intelligence built into the health, which could be in terms of data analytics, could be in terms of biosensors, artificial intelligence, virtual reality, you name it. But we have to accept it. We have to make it cost effective, make it relevant to us. And we made learning very relevant by having online training modules. We made it mandatory for all nurses at AIIMS to have the training modules. And we already released on 6 modules, and having 5,000 nurses in one place helps. So they all get to learn, and it's been a very, very good experience for us. So innovation doesn't have to be something which is, you have to work a lot to get it. Innovation is happening right now, right here. We have to see it, we have to build on it, and we have to accept it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Deepak. Quick observation and comment from my side. I think that you've hit the nail on its head when you've looked at the issue of health economics. I mean, we have a very large, as a development economist, I think one of the greatest cause of people being pushed into poverty is healthcare. If there is a healthcare emergency, then large number of people are pushed into poverty. And other issue, I think, is that healthcare is not being equally provided to all. I think one of the papers that we have sort of written together on this issue by looking at AIIMS data itself, huge gender bias in access to healthcare. And it is not as if the healthcare practitioners are discriminating, but the society itself, women are less likely to be brought to the hospital. If they are brought to the hospital, then they are brought in with more severe condition. So the overall health economics, which I think Dr. Deepak has impressed upon, in making healthcare accessible, making healthcare cheaper, has huge gender implications as well, in addition to just making the cost of healthcare lower. I think that's one of the areas which we have worked on, we have collaborated on. And I also liked your analogy, in terms of the utilitarian approach. I think at the end of the day, we think that healthcare should be a fundamental right, but it is very costly to provide equal access healthcare. We have to make deliberate decisions between old age versus young, men versus women, and these are not very easy decisions. You know, this rule-based will seem very simple to you, but if you look at the tragedies around us in terms of the Gorakhpur tragedy, I mean, why one has to ask very fundamental question that why is basic care not being provided? These are avoidable diseases, these are avoidable circumstances. And I'll give you one statistics, sir, which I think is very pertinent to your talk. You will be surprised to know that in UP, we counted the number of infant death in Gorakhpur was 60. You will be surprised to know in Bihar, only 233 infant deaths are registered. So what you don't see is a crisis of not knowing how many children are dying, not because of care being provided, but because of care not being provided. So I think this is a very, very fundamental issue you have raised. So thank you very much for initiating a discussion on health economics. I think very, very pertinent. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
So our next session is, next topic is Android-based cause-effective ventilator for resource-constrained settings by Professor Divakar Vaish.
The HDMI is connected, so I don't think the sound would be coming out anyway. Can you take it from the HDMI if it is possible for you? मैच खेलता था गली में आके Is my mic working? That's okay. So, good afternoon everyone. I'm Divakar Vaish and I'm the Head of Robotics and Research at AIIMS Training and Research Institute and the founder of AIIMS Robotics. Today today is a day when I realize a dream of mine. It is a day when we can actually do something which we have already imagined 7 years ago when we were making or founding this institute. We have done things to the society which were earlier thought to be completely impossible, things that have changed the lives of many people, many corporates, and many individuals as well. Some of the key things that we have done already is making Manav Robot. So Manav Robot is India's first completely made in India robot, which has been made, manufactured, designed, and assembled here in India itself. It is one of the most advanced robots available all across the country. And not only that, this is one of the cheapest robot available in the market as well. One of the only robot that is completely 3D printed, and at the very same point of time, it is one of the only robots that you can actually go ahead and program in any of the languages. So we made Manav, and after making Manav, we actually went ahead and we said, okay, we want to do something which is even more radical, something which is completely different, something which has been never done before. So we went ahead and we made this wheelchair. Now, there's a special thing about this wheelchair, and that special thing is that it is the world's first mind-controlled wheelchair. It has been made for people who have full body paralysis, people who do not have any sort of control over their body. They are only able to see the things around them. They're only able to listen to the things around them, but they are not able to do anything to the physical world. So we made this wheelchair, and by our brain sensing technology, what we did was we got inside their head and we understood that, okay, what exactly are you thinking at this point of time? And based on our advanced machine learning and artificial intelligence algorithm, we were able to figure out that how exactly they want this wheelchair to go. And based on that, we control this wheelchair just by thinking. So I have a very small video here with me, and I'll play it for you. So my hands are up in the air, I'm not doing anything. There's a headset on my head, and based on that, I'm controlling this wheelchair. And I'm taking it in a very, very narrow alley. And it has been controlled just by thinking, and that's it. So this is a pinnacle of what mind control technology can do. Or I would say this was the pinnacle of technology, what mind control technology can do. What we have right now is something which is completely different. Now, what is special in this picture? Well, I'm wearing a brain sensor right there, and that brain sensor is connected to my laptop, and my laptop is connected to a robot, just the way it is there in a laboratory or anything like that. What is special? In this situation, we are doing something which is completely, it is something which is science fiction, which we have made possible in our lab. What we are doing is we are cloning human brain into a robot. What is happening in this picture is whatever is going on inside my brain is being transferred to a laptop, and from that laptop, it is being transferred to the robot, and the robot is learning how my brain is reacting in different kind of situations, and based on that, it is learning how to react to different situations. So it is copying the brain, or it is copying my brain at that point of time. Now, let's see how it actually does that. So this is basically a video. And let me tell you, all of these things which I'm about to show you has not been programmed, it has not been done before. Everything is happening in real time at that point of time itself. So let's play this video and let's understand what exactly is happening here. So I have apple in my hand, and at that point of time, I'm showing him this apple. He understands, okay, this is an apple and I eat this apple. After I eat this apple, what is happening at that point of time, it is understanding, okay, how am I feeling about this apple? And just to let you know, I really love apples, so all of that has been transferred into the robot. Now I show him this grape. He understands this is a grape. And when I eat it, from my facial expressions, you can tell that, okay, I didn't really like this grape. Now, I'll pause this video for a second. Now, in this very brief moment of time, in this fraction of seconds, it has learned, it has understood how my brain is working, and it has copied all those functionalities in the brain, into the microcontroller of the robot itself. Now, what I'm doing is I'm showing him this another apple, and after showing him this apple, he'll automatically react in the very same way. Just to let you know, remind you that I love apples and I hate grapes. So let's see how robot has cloned my brain and how the robot will react. So let me play this video for you again. So he looks at the apple and he sways his arm forward. Okay, I want this apple. This is a gesture for the robot that, okay, he wants this apple. Even more interesting, he looks at the grape. He looks at the grape. Let's see what he does. He doesn't want the grape. This, my dear friend, is the first example of brain cloning right in front of you, and it has been done for the first time in the entire world, in India itself. This is a technology. This is a technology that has been made possible in our labs, and this is for the first time. We can say the US or America invented the car. We can say, so many things invented by so many other countries, but we can very proudly say that the brain cloning technology, based on which super intelligence will work, real intelligence will work, has been born in India itself. So far, so good. Now, we ask this question to ourselves. We have done so much till right now. What is the step which we should take forward? We are already into steel industry, we are already into military, we are already into research. What should we actually do next so that we can change the lives of the people? And that's what the goal is from the very starting, to make robots, to get these robots down to your home. Now, let me take you back an year. I don't know how many of you were there last time in 2006. I was here right on the stage the very same day, first or second day of this event. And I told you guys that there's a big gap between the healthcare industry and the technology industry. And we need your help to make the healthcare better. We need your support and we need information from your side to understand what are the problems that you're facing at that point of time. And it worked. After a few months, I got a call from Dr. Deepak, whom you must be knowing very well. So we got a call from him, and we understood about a lot of problems that we are facing at this point of time. And one of the problems was a very severe one. We met this patient. Now this patient, what you can see next to him is a ventilator. And he's connected to this ventilator from last 4 years on the very same bed, NS3 ward, bed number 23. He's there from last 4 years. Imagine spending 4 days on that bed. He's there from last 4 years. It's a very, very tragic situation. And the worst part about this situation is we don't know how long will he be there. How many more years will he be spending on that bed? Why? Because he is hooked up to a ventilator which is costing upwards of 10 lakh rupees, which needs oxygen 24/7, which is very bulky. He cannot take that home, which needs a doctor to control that device. If I go ahead and understand the situation, you know the situation very well, but just to make you understand, this is basically a C1 and C2 injury, C1, C2 vertebrae injury, in which the lower body is completely paralyzed, which includes one of the most important organs, and that is the diaphragm of that person. Now, when the diaphragm is not receiving the signals properly, what happens is that person is not able to breathe, and when he is not able to breathe, well, we need a ventilator. Now, conventionally, this is how a very good-looking ventilator looks like. Not good-looking at all, just... And if I just go for another ventilator, it looks like this. Another one, it looks like this. So these ventilators, doesn't matter what they are, how they are very big, very bulky. And if I talk about the problems these ventilators are having, I can go on for the entire day. But I really don't want to get into that scenario, but I want to tell you what the biggest of these problems are. First thing first, it is huge. So you can't carry it in your homes. Stacking it up in the hospitals is a problem, because in case of an epidemic, in case of a widespread disease, an airborne disease, you need these ventilators. You need ventilators in a very large numbers. And stacking it up, you need real estate, and we don't have a lot of it. The second thing, they are very, very expensive, super duper expensive. 10 lakhs, 15 lakhs is a very normal figures when we talk about ventilators, which is not affordable by a normal Indian middle class. Now, moving on from there, the problem doesn't end there, because you need a doctor, because this thing, can you figure out what that touch screen has to do? I don't think so. I spent a few days, few months, in fact, with these ventilators, and trust me, they are the UI's user interface worst disaster ever. And what we have been trying to understand is who designed this ventilator. They should be given an award for this. So there are so many problems with these ventilators, and people are bound to the hospitals because they have this ventilator. They have to live their life like that. Someone said, okay, we have also tried something called a portable ventilator or a disposable ventilator. So it was looking something like this. It comes from Watron or something like that. That is the name of the company who's making it. So what it basically does is it doesn't require any kind of electricity. It runs by the pressure of the air. Sounds very amazing, and it is this big, so it looks like a wonder to me. But the problem is, when a person has this device automatically pumps in air at a certain point of time and takes out the air from his body at a certain moment of time, which in most of the cases, and you can calculate the actual rate at which it would be working successfully, that it pumps the air 99% of the time at a wrong moment of time. And when it takes out the air, the patient generally needs air. And it gets a really nasty situation when you put this ventilator up, because we have done that with our patients, and we have got very negative results till right now. Very good for a few days. It is actually certified for only a few weeks of working, and then it has to be thrown off. You have to get a new one. So on paper, works very good. In reality, doesn't really work very well. What do we do? That is the problem. In AIIMS, when you go to NS3 ward, this is how that ward looks like. Paralysis patients, patients who have injuries, patients who are completely bedbound from many, many months and many, many years as well. We thought to do something about it. We said, we want to make a ventilator which everyone can afford. We're not just talking about the hospitals, but we're talking about the normal people as well, who can take these ventilators home, who can get discharged from the hospital and get back to their normal lives. And that's what we wanted. So we went ahead and we made a ventilator, and we reduced the cost 100 times. That's not 100%, that is 100 times. A conventional ventilator will cost you close to 10, 15, some cases 20 lakh rupees as well. You can actually Google it and you will get very nice dollar prices for that. In our case, this ventilator would only be costing between 15 to 20,000 rupees, which would be the world's cheapest ventilator ever made. Not only that, one of the biggest problems with these ventilators was that it was very big, it was very clunky, it was something which was very hard to carry. So we reduced the size of the ventilator 450 times. Can you imagine how small that ventilator would be? You can never imagine. And in fact, it is so small that I actually have it with me in my back pocket, and that's how it looks like. This is the world's cheapest, the smallest ventilator ever made. And this is how gorgeous it looks. No buttons, no drama, no UI, a simple ventilator which you can have it by your bedside. And this is what is going to change the world. When you can carry it in your pocket, you can take it anywhere. Even if the person has paralysis, he can have it in the bedside. You can stack it up in the hospitals because it is only costing 15 to 20,000 rupees. You can stack it up at any point of time. If there's any epidemic, you can ship it. There are so many shipping companies for that, so you can ship it anywhere. And this is a very, very small little device. And it has been designed. What you can see from this design, it is a very, very elegant design. And why is it so elegant? Because we have built it around the ground scenarios. We have understood the ground realities. We have talked to the doctors, we have talked to the nurses, we have talked to their parents, their attendants, and we have understood every single problem that they were facing at that point of time, and then solve all of these problems on a very ground manner. It looks very small. It has a place to actually hang it right besides the bed. It has actually 3 lights, actually 4 of them, which lights up inside it, which you can't see right now because we don't want to make it very techy. It just should look like a very normal piece of equipment. And so I'll keep it right here so that you can actually see it very small, and this is how you actually have it. So this is the world's cheapest, world's smallest ventilator ever made. You know, people ask me that you are making technology so cheaper. Tell me what is the catch to it. There must be something missing. You might be using inferior technologies. You'd be something that should not be right. Well, let me tell you, this is also the world's most advanced ventilator ever made till date. And this is proven by the fact that this is a ventilator that does not, in fact, the world's first ventilator that does not need any sort of oxygen supply. This is going to change the world. Have you heard about the Gorakhpur Incident, where a lot of children died because of lack of oxygen? How unfortunate was that? Had this ventilator been there, a lot of those lives would have been saved. There are 2 models to this. One is the hospital model, the other one is the home model. So the one which you can take back home, you don't need oxygen for that. So there is no recurring cost. You just buy this ventilator and it just works perfectly fine. And especially when we talk about this ventilator, one of the key technologies that we have employed is pumping the right amount of air in the right quantity to the lungs. And what that does is, because now you don't have oxygen cylinders, you are saving approximately 3,000 to 3,500 rupees, even 4,000 rupees per day on a single ventilator itself. So it's just not the purchase cost, but also the cost that is associated with running the ventilator. And just in case, I would like to show you what is inside this ventilator. This is, I've worked on this ventilator from last approximately 6 months. We have done the trials, the clinical trials from last 3 months, and we have packed so much technology in it that it is a piece of miracle. So this is how it looks like when we open it up. There are power management circuit, which you can see in black. There's a microcontroller circuit, which you can see in blue. At the back of it is a Bluetooth module. So it is also a Bluetooth enabled ventilator, and along with that you can see a control module which looks in the green color, and this is how it looks like when you open it up. So much of technology. It might not look a lot to you, but there's so much packed inside it that you can't really compare it, let alone be of their standard. You can't really compare it to any other ventilator across the world. It is in every single way superior to any other ventilator. So we're not just making the cheapest, the smallest, but the most advanced ventilator as well. And as the talk, starting of the talk said, the title of the talk, that it is controlled by an Android app. Yes, very certainly, because we don't want that you should have a doctor around you to control these ventilators. Trust me, even doctors have to undergo some sort of training to actually go ahead and operate these ventilators, the conventional ones. With our ventilator, because it is an Android app, anyone and everyone can control it. And the UI is so beautiful. It is so simple, so clean, that you can actually understand what is going on right while you look at the app itself. So this is how the screen looks like. This is the raw data that is coming out, the inhale and exhale phases. You can slide it up onto the other side. I'm really sorry, I don't have the video for that, but you can actually go and see this video online onto our website. So this is the inhale and exhale phases, which you can see, and then when you slide it, you can actually see the settings page, which has only 6 settings which you can control. And the best part about it, it is not just Android control, but we understand that this technology would not only be used in the metro cities, but also in rural areas where the people are not very well educated, who might not be able to even control these applications. In that cases, they can simply call us up at any point of time. And from any part of the world, we can change the settings of the ventilator while sitting on our laptop. So they simply need to tell us the problem, and we will have a solution to it from any part of the world, which is again a feature that is unparalleled, which has been seen for the first time in any of the ventilator, which will completely change the way the rural areas work in terms of healthcare technologies. It is also the world's first ventilator to have artificial intelligence built onto it. What does it do? Why an artificial intelligence algorithm inside a ventilator? Why do you need that? We need that in robots. Well, there are patients, and these patients can actually control these ventilators by controlling some amount of their lung pressure in the morning, but when they sleep, they are not able to give that feedback to the ventilator. And when they are not able to give that feedback to the ventilator, what actually happens at that point of time is that the ventilator goes on auto mode. That is a very common feature. But what happens is, it is set to a number of times, 24, 23, 22, any number of times the inhale and exhale phase will happen in a minute. Whereas in this one, in this ventilator, it learns from the prior experiences. It learns how you were breathing 15 minutes from that time, 1 hour from that time, how you have actually done it from last 1 hour, what your breathing rate was. And based on that, it calculates the right amount of air, the right amount of cycle time, the right amount of exhale and inhale time that you might be needing at that point of time to have 100% of oxygen concentration. And at this point of time, this has been achieved by the onboard sensors. In the future, we are also looking forward to have Bluetooth oximeters attached to this ventilator, because of which you would not be needing any kind of controlling mechanism. It will automatically be doing all the things, doing all the calculations in the back end, and making sure that the oxygen concentration in the blood is always and always close to 100%. And that would be happening completely automatically with the help of our artificial intelligence algorithm. Now we come to the safety. Now obviously, ventilator work or the patient dies. As simple as that. I can put it straightforward. If this doesn't work, there's a big problem that we may face at any point of time. Now, to make sure that this ventilator works at our point of time, we have a lot of things going on in the back end. So first thing, it sends a text message in case of an emergency. So you can feed in anyone's number, the relative's number, the number who, the attendant's number, mother's number, parent's number, anyone. And it will get or give you a message as soon as it predicts that there is a chance of failure. There might be a loss of oxygen. There might be a loss of anything that might be happening at that point of time. It alerts you of that so that you can do a preventive care. Second thing, it warns of any problem that might occur. So how it warns? Obviously by a text message. It has an auditory response, so there is a buzzer, so it beeps at a very high frequency, so anyone from any part of the room can hear it. So it is very enough for a normal home, a 3,000 square feet home, to actually listen from one corner of the room to the other corner of the room as well. So it is very loud. And obviously it also has a visual warning, so it gives you a visual feedback. Okay, there is something going wrong, as I told you about the lights. So yellow light is there that tells you that, okay, there is a problem in the ventilator as well. Now, if there is any problem in the ventilator, what happens? It first alarms you. If you don't do anything, there's a secondary microcontroller at any point of time which controls all of these things parallelly. So if anything goes wrong, there's always something at standby which can take over, and it can save the life of that patient. So this kind of technology has been taken down from literally the fighter jets, and we have put it down into our ventilator, which we are doing at this point of time. And it has 2 computers to make sure that it always works fine. Amazing piece of technology which we have developed. It is something which I look at, and I look at it with gleaming eyes, that it is something which we have really made with investment of a lot of technology, a lot of experience in artificial intelligence, in machine learning, in sensor technology, in 3D printing technology, in in the IoT technology, mobile application. There's so much that has gone into it, and we have made it as perfect as it could be. And just in case, if you were thinking about it, we definitely have a patent for it as well. So we have filed the patent for this, a system and a method for sensing and sensing the respiratory phases and controlling the gas supply for the same. So there's a long title to it. You can go ahead and read this patent as well. So this is a patent we have filed. Now, what happens is there is a big problem. The problem is that it doesn't matter how many words I say or how many words I tell, at the end of the day, till the time you don't see the ground scenario, you don't really understand what is the gravity of the situation. If I tell you, okay, this is a C1, C2 injury, the body gets fully paralyzed, okay, yeah, it happens. But when you meet the patient, when you meet their parents, when you meet the people around them, then you understand how tragic it is and what our technology would be able to do by this kind of a ventilator. So we have made a short video which can demonstrate about how this ventilator is changing the lives of many, many people. So can we have the audio? Can you increase the volume?
सचिन जब छोटा था पढ़ने में बहुत तेज था, खेलने कूदने में बहुत तेज था।
बचपन से बोलता था मुझे क्रिकेटर बनना है, क्रिकेटर बनना चाहता था, बहुत क्रिकेट खेलता था।
मैच खेलता था गली में आके।
2010 की बात है, ये जो सचिन हमारा अच्छे से सुबह स्कूल गया था।
अच्छा खासा गया हुआ था, लेकिन ना स्कूल में गिर गया। फोन आया था स्कूल से कि तुम्हारा बेटा ना गिर गया है और ना हमने साथ में ना हॉस्पिटल में भर्ती कर दिया है। उनका एम्स के अंदर दिखाई, उसके लिए हमने एम्स के लिए पेपर लगा।
ऑपरेशन के लिए डॉक्टर दीपक अग्रवाल है, उन्होंने ट्रीटमेंट किया इसका।
वेंटिलेटर लग गया, सांस लेने में दिक्कत हो गई, कोई हाथ पैर काम नहीं कर रहा, कोई मूवमेंट नहीं कर रहा।
मेरा बेटा एम्स में ही एडमिट है और एम्स में एडमिट है और 14 से अभी तक वेंटिलेटर पे ही है।
रातों दिन हम पड़े रहते हैं, हमारी मिसेज और मैं दोनों ने रातों दिन में पड़े रहते थे।
तब से मेरे और मेरे परिवार की पूरी जिंदगी ही बिखर गई एक तरह से।
पैसे के लिए परेशानी हो गई, बहुत दिक्कतें हो गई, क्या बताएं हम, बहुत दिक्कतें हो गई। मतलब हमारा एक ही बेटा वो एम्स के अंदर पड़ा हुआ 4 साल से।
तो रक्षाबंधन पे याद आती है उसकी बहुत कि मेरा ब्रदर मेरे पास नहीं होता।
हमारे पास इतने पैसे नहीं है कि हम बड़ा वेंटिलेटर ले सके, इतना अरेंज कर सके।
हमारा वार्ड है जैसे 30 बेड का, उसमें से 6 बिस्तर ऐसे मरीजों के लिए बंधे हुए हैं जिनको 24 घंटे मशीन की ज़रूरत होती है सांस लेने के लिए। और ये बहुत ही गंभीर समस्या है क्योंकि ये सारे मरीज़ जो हैं हमारे पास 6 महीने से, कई तो 3-3 साल से हमारे पास भर्ती हैं और इनको घर भेजने की कोई सुविधाएं नहीं है क्योंकि जो वेंटिलेटर केयर है वो बहुत ही मुश्किल और बहुत ही एक्सपेंसिव ऑप्शन है।
हम घर ला नहीं सकते इसको क्योंकि वो वेंटिलेटर बड़ा महंगा भी है और बहुत बड़ा है, उसको हम अफोर्ड भी नहीं कर सकते।
एम्स में जो वेंटिलेटर है, अगर हम उसको घर भी लाते हैं तो उसमें जो हमारा डेली का ऑक्सीजन का खर्चा है वो 5 से 6 हज़ार है।
प्रोफेसर दिवाकर जी जो वेंटिलेटर बना रहे हैं छोटा सा, बहुत अच्छा लगा है देखने में उसको।
डिवाइस से हमको तो काफ़ी उम्मीद जागी है कि हम अपने बच्चों को घर ला सकते हैं।
वेंटिलेटर बनाया है जो कि करीब 100 गुना ज़्यादा सस्ता है। ये वेंटिलेटर दुनिया का न केवल सबसे सस्ता, सबसे छोटा, बल्कि सबसे एडवांस्ड वेंटिलेटर है।
आज का जो वेंटिलेटर है वो तो सिर्फ ऑक्सीजन, ज़्यादातर उसको या तो कंटिन्यूस ऑक्सीजन की सप्लाई से चलाते हैं या फिर ऑक्सीजन सिलेंडर जो बहुत जल्दी ख़त्म हो जाता है उसकी ज़रूरत पड़ती है। पर इस वेंटिलेटर में ये खूबी है कि वो रूम एयर या फिर जो वातावरण में जितनी होती है ऑक्सीजन, उसका इस्तेमाल करके मरीज़ को सांस दे सकता है।
आपको इसे चलाने के लिए केवल और केवल एक एंड्रॉयड फ़ोन की ज़रूरत है जिसमें एक ऐप होगा और उस ऐप से आप सारी चीज़ें कंट्रोल कर सकते हैं वेंटिलेटर के लिए।
It's definitely a plus point for the patients because it's easy to carry, very portable size of the hand.
The defibrillator will help a lot in saving lives.
हो रही हैं, जैसे आपने पढ़ा होगा ये बर्ड फ्लू हुआ, HN वायरस आया और बहुत सारे वायरसेस आ रहे हैं जिस वजह से मरीजों को सांस लेने में प्रॉब्लम होती है और उनको इमरजेंसी केयर और वेंटिलेटर की ज़रूरत है। कोई भी अस्पताल इतने सारे मरीजों के साथ कोप नहीं कर पाते और वेंटिलेटर की कमी की वजह से कई मरीज जो है ठीक से इलाज नहीं पाते और दम भी तोड़ते। तो हमारे आविष्कार से अभी जो भी अस्पताल है उसमें कभी वेंटिलेटर की कमी नहीं होगी और किसी भी बीमारी के लिए, ये सिर्फ गर्दन के लिए नहीं, कोई भी सांस वाली बीमारी हो उसमें भी ये बहुत ज़्यादा फायदेमंद है।
न्यू टेक्नोलॉजी आई है तो पूरा ट्रस्ट है इसके ऊपर।
फैमिली या सचिन की नहीं, एम्स में बहुत पेशेंट हैं जिनकी ज़िंदगी पे असर पड़ेगा इस वेंटिलेटर से। तो ये प्रोफेसर जो है दिवाकर बहुत अच्छा काम कर रहे हैं।
प्रोफेसर दिवाकर जी जो वेंटिलेटर बना रहे हैं, एक तो हमारे इंडिया में बना हुआ है और बहुत छोटा है और वो बहुत सस्ता भी है और उससे क्या है लाखों बच्चों को भी उम्मीद जगेगी, मेरा बेटा भी घर आ सकता है।
So this, my friends, was the world's cheapest, smallest, and the most advanced ventilator ever made. And it has been made possible only because of the inputs from the doctors, from the gap that we filled last year in this conference itself, and making the technology reach down to the people. And one of the key person who has been in this project from last many months, who has pushed this project really, really hard so that he can get back home is Dr. Deepak. And I would really appreciate if you can share a few words about this technology and let people know about it.
Having a ventilator for me was very, very important. We were experimenting with various technologies. In fact, in the last conference, we had presented a disposable ventilator, which was also costing less than 10,000 rupees. However, the drawback was that it had to be replaced every 4 weeks or so. And most importantly, it was not synchronized with the patient's respiration. So it was just kept pushing in air. So we were looking at other things, and I had a lot of ideas in mind how to do it, but I didn't have a person who could execute the ideas from the technical side. And the last conference only I got to meet Mr. Divakar, and he showed a lot of interest, and he said, okay, fine, we'll do it. And what you see today is the result of his, I would say, expertise. So when I think this is the true collaboration which is happening, you know. So if the two domains from the technical side and the medical side come together for the patient's benefit, we can really change the healthcare environment in our country. And I think that is the way forward. It can really solve a lot of problems for us, our patients, and we look forward to getting it into the market as soon as possible. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Professor Vash, for this mind-boggling ventilator. It's too good to be true, so as scientists, we are always skeptical also. So I would urge Dr. Deepak and AIIMS to push through the clinical trial as soon as possible to see its safety and effectiveness, so that we can sort of apply it at a mass scale level. This will be truly revolutionary, particularly in areas where it is very difficult to provide this kind of facility. And let me tell you, in India, 70% of our population stays in rural India, does not have access to basic healthcare needs, and patients, they have an ICU, but as he had mentioned, in Gorakhpur, the oxygen supply is not there, or there is some malfunctioning of the equipment, but this seems to be too good to be true, so we need to sort of, at a heightened, fastened level, we need to sort of test its efficacy as soon as possible and get it out there. Now, I'm your third speaker, so as a chair, I'll try to be as quick as possible with my presentation. So from the sublime, we will go to the real, we'll talk about the appointment system, so that we can all be relieved very quickly. Good afternoon, good evening. Thank you very much for being patient throughout the session, but I think what you've heard is something very, very interesting. But let me now bring you down to the real world. In this world, we started with a very philosophical discussion on healthcare for all. Then we saw an equipment that could actually provide healthcare to all. And now let's look at something which is based on data, analytics, machine learning, how that can be used to a certain extent to solve some of the problems that are faced with a large institution like AIIMS, where 3 million patients visit on an annual basis. And the fundamental principle that we follow, essentially, being an economist, is that everybody talks about shortages of healthcare resources. We don't have doctors, we don't have nurses, we don't have many hospital beds. But fundamentally, the question is that are we efficiently utilizing the existing resources or not? And you will be surprised to know that when I look at the occupancy rate in even large hospitals, I'm actually surprised by the percentage. You know, for a large public hospital like AIIMS, one would have expected the occupancy rate to be close to 91, 92, 93%, but you'll be surprised that it is as close to almost 80 to 81%. So the question is, are we really very healthy as a country that we don't require hospital care? Or is there a fundamental problem in the way we utilize our resources? So that was the basic quest with which I set out this journey using data and analytics. And what I'm going to present to you is one flavor, one of the products that we have created using data and analytics, and that has to do with the appointment system. The fundamental problem in any appointment system is that patients book appointments but don't show up. And this essentially poses a huge problem. For example, when we looked at the data at AIIMS, 80% of the time we noticed there was underutilization of resources. Even though AIIMS seems like a very crowded OPD, but when you actually get down to the numbers, what its capacity is and what its utilization are very different things. But when you look at the number of people booking an appointment, because booking an appointment is absolutely free, to not show up does not cost anything to the patient, it has no implications whatsoever. The probability or the rate at which people book an appointment and don't show up in many departments was below 50%. So if 200 people have booked an appointment for today, less than 100 people will actually show up for the appointment. So this is a fundamental problem when we look at OPD appointments. And the question essentially is, how do we resolve issues like this? Are they resolvable? Can we resolve it or not? So as a result, what we see typically in the hospital system is huge waiting line to get an appointment, but at the same time, paradoxically, underutilization of resources. And then we have some days when we have massive overutilization of resources, when doctors are complaining there are too many patients in the system. So there is no smooth operation, if you wish to ask me, in terms of how many patients a doctor is seeing, how many patients are flowing into the system. And if you were to conduct surveys, particularly in public hospitals, everybody talks about the low patient satisfaction. People are usually not very satisfied with the services that they have typically received. And this typically happens because either there is too many patients are there, or there are too few patients in the system. So what do? We basically provide a very, very simple solution to this problem, which is, can we look at the characteristics of the patient who's booking an appointment and compute what is the probability that he or she will come for the appointment or not? So somebody comes to the counter, puts up the age of the patient, gender of the patient, the state the patient is coming from, the department that they are seeking appointment to. What we did, we analyzed this data for the last year. We looked at the 3 million OPD patients who were booking appointments. I mean, number of people booking appointments was much large. And basically, for basic characteristics of the patients, we came up with a number which said, how likely is this patient going to show up for the appointment or not? So it's a very simple sort of a calculation, but at the end of the day, this is what data and analytics can do. And then, on a real-time basis, because I am a statistician, econometrician, and economist sort of put together, that is what we call an econometrician. Once I know what is the probability with which a person is going to show up, I can effectively compute how many appointments should we book. So if we have a department which allows 200 appointments to be booked, then essentially, if, for example, I know that the probability of no-show is 50% and it's identical across all patients, then I will more or less go and book 400 appointments. So as a result, I would know purely because of the large number of appointments that the probability that more than 200 patients are going to come is going to be extremely small. So as a result, what we get is an efficient utilization of resources. Now, what is really interesting is that this kind of data is not only available at AIIMS, but by and large, most of the hospitals have introduced computerization, where basic data on patients' characteristics such as gender, age, which departments they are seeking appointment to is basically being captured. So what is the impact this has? Basically, it allows optimal resource allocation. There is lesser wait time because now I know how many appointments to book. Imagine there is a patient who wants an appointment for tomorrow, but if there is no slot available, this patient would have for sure come into the appointment, would have come for the appointment, but cannot come, has to wait because somebody else has booked. When tomorrow comes, unfortunately, some previous patients who booked the appointment might not actually show up. And this is extremely a large problem, so we resolved that. Larger number of patients served in a shorter period of time also leads to better quality of care. The faster we can get the patients into the system, the sooner care can be provided and more efficiently we can serve our patients as well. And I have looked at, in fact, I have gone to district hospitals. I have looked at this data. I've been to Kannauj. I've looked at in various UP hospitals as well. This is not very unique to AIIMS itself. It is actually a problem which is present in many, many hospitals, both public and private. So what does this product feature basically look like? There's a live calendar out there. So the green dots are, let's say today is 12th of September. People are seeking appointments for 14th of September. 200 slots are available. And the question essentially is now somebody is going to book an appointment for the 14th of September. At the time of booking an appointment, the data that is captured essentially is age, gender, which state you are booking an appointment from. And once this data is captured, then essentially for each of the patients, we can actually calculate what is the probability that he or she is likely to show up for the appointment. So now, even though 5 people have booked an appointment, as you can see out here, yet only 4 slots have been booked up. The reason is very simple because we know some of them have a lower probability of showing up. Previously, the system would work in the sense that the moment the capacity is fixed, we would book it to capacity. We would treat each individual that he or she is likely to show up for the appointment. In other words, is more or less going to show up. Now, of course, Dr. Deepak's team tried to resolve this problem of no-show. But I think what we can do essentially is to bring in data and analytics, which over here analyzes the characteristics of the patient. In this case, it is age, gender, and state. State is important because distance to the hospital matters. Age is important. For example, we have noticed that when it comes to children, people are more likely to show up for the appointment. Gender is also important when it comes to men versus women. Men are more likely to show up for the appointment vis-a-vis women. Now, this might not be consistent across all departments. For example, in the orthopedic department, people could be in so much pain that they are more likely to show up. But in medicine department, when they booked an appointment, they feel slightly better. They are not likely to show up for the appointment. So this kind of data and analytics takes account of all these characteristics of the patients that are there. And at the end of the day, what it does essentially is it uses those characteristics, assigns a particular probability, and then decides how many slots should be opened up. So in this particular case, for example, we've allowed, let's say, 10 patients to book up, but as you can see, only 7 slots have been taken. The reason is very simple because we look at the probabilities of people showing up. Now, you might wonder that if I have overbooked, then most patients, what would happen if patients show up? What we have kept in mind out here essentially is that there are huge sort of that kind of an event where all people whom you've called actually show up for the appointment is actually a very small probability event, and this is where data and analytics helps us in a very big way. Now, the idea out here is that the reason why we have called 10 patients and even only 7 slots have been taken up is that we should be able to serve, we should be able to shorten the appointment time, which is the queue length that is being formed. And at the same time, we have to be cognizant of the fact that patients who don't show up are actually leading to wasteful utilization of resource, but at the same time, being a public hospital is very difficult to penalize them. Very often in private facilities, it might be easy to penalize patients, but in a public facility, a patient who books an appointment does not show up, does not realize the burden he or she is causing on the system, right? I mean, there is no way that he or she can realize. They will only look at whether it makes sense for them to come or not come. So this kind of a system can be very easily implemented. In fact, as we speak, it is ready for implementation. It comes in, gives a number, it is fully automated. But what is really interesting is that the system actually learns on its own without human intervention, which means that if I make a mistake or there is an error in my prediction of a person showing up, then the system can calibrate on its own to readjust the probabilities of an individual, whether he's likely to show up or not show up. So for example, if there is an epidemic that has spread, the system will be able to recognize that most patients are likely to show up, and therefore the number of slots that will be, or the number of individuals that are called for the appointment is actually adjusted accordingly. So which means if everybody is likely to show up for the appointment, then I would only fix 200 appointments in this case. But if only 50% of the people are likely to show up for the appointment, then this number can actually change. But what is really interesting is that it takes into account the characteristics of the patients. In conclusion, what I would like to say essentially is that this OPD scheduler significantly improves the service provided to the patient. And how does it improve the service? It actually genuinely allows the adjustments of the slot availability such that a patient who is really wanting to see the doctor on a particular given day is not denied a chance. So that is a big sort of an improvement in terms of the quality care. And the other good thing about these sort of machine learning is that as the more and more data comes in, it also recognizes, learns, and adapts. So once this is a system that has been put at AIIMS, then basically this system works on its own. It does not require much of human intervention. Machine can recognize the patterns, the data which is coming from the new data, and therefore solves in some sense the appointment problem which exists in OPD scheduling. So thank you very much. So I think we very much concluded on time. We were supposed to conclude at 4 o'clock. Thank you very much for your patience, and I hope you've learned something in this session as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. I want to thank all three speakers for today. Now I would like to request Dr. Deepak to please present a token of appreciation to Dr. Mudit Kapoor. Thank you, sir. I request Dr. Deepak to please present a token of appreciation to Professor Divakar Vesh. No. Okay. With this is the end of the second day of conference. I request all those delegates who have registered themselves for the quiz to stay back.
Tomorrow what time? Tomorrow sharp will be starting at 9 o'clock. So I would request all of you to please come at 9. And we also request you all to please use the app. How many of you have downloaded the app? Can I have a raise of hands? So I would like you to all use it. Those who have not downloaded, please download it. We want interaction. We want your comments so that the moderator can see your comments and ask the same questions which you're writing in the app. It is a very, very important thing for us, because we value your feedback. So it is the end of the day for us today, except for those who are in the quiz, and we meet tomorrow at 9. Thank you.
Excuse me, sir. Divakar Vesh.
The last gift helped me shed some weight.